What's up, everybody? Welcome to the first ever episode of a brand new Geektacular.TV web show called, as you saw in the intro there, Valiant Effort. And what is Valiant Effort? We'll tell you in a moment. But first, as always, faithful co-host, comics extraordinaire, it's just Nathan.
Hello, everybody.
Are you pumped?
I am pumped.
Brand new show.
Brand new show.
Exciting topic.
Brand new concept. That's right.
All right. So we actually, I don't think we've told really anybody what it's about. I teased a screenshot from the intro the other day on Facebook. So if you are a Facebook fan, if you've gone and liked us, you would have seen that. But I didn't let any beans spill about what it's about. So I don't think anybody even knew the name. So for those of you who don't see down there, it's called Valiant Effort. And this is going to be our first comics-based web show on Geektacular.TV. And basically what we're going to do, it's kind of an ambitious project, and you can feel free to throw in your 2 cents on this if you have anything else to add. But basically what we're going to be doing is there's a brand, basically an entire universe called Valiant, and they started making modern Valiant comics back in the 90s. And they're recently relaunching the universe. So what our intention is to go back to the original 90s version and basically read all of everything that they ever put out.
At least until they got sold to Acclaim and started to suck.
Oh. Well, we'll see when we cross that bridge, I suppose. I think that's many episodes down the line.
Yes. But the normal idea will be that each episode will be a month of the comics. So in the early going, there's only a couple of books shipping, so it's not as many books. Once we get up into months where there are a number of books coming out, that might be different. But that's what we're looking at right now.
Yeah. And this first episode's going to be a little bit different because we kind of have a little bit of a history with the brand and the universe and everything. So we kind of wanted to delve into that before we actually start talking about the comics. But and then the first few came out a few months apart. So this will probably be the only episode that will feature multiple months worth of comics, but that's because it took them like 4 months to put out the first 3 comics. So we're going to kind of compress that into one episode.
And so for those who are following along, it'll probably be in the episode name as well, but we're doing Magnus Robot Fighter 1 through 3. And just to give you a little bit more history, I mean, Valiant Comics really got started because a lot of their key characters came from Gold Key Comics. They bought the rights to those characters. It's actually a group called Voyager Communications. And then they either relaunched them or sort of picked up with the characters in the future. Some are changed a lot more than others. We're not going to go back to the Gold Key stuff too much. We're just going to sort of pick them up where they are at the beginning of the Valiant Comics era and run with them from there.
Yeah, that's a pretty good summary of what you can at least expect from the run at the beginning. And then who knows, we might switch it up. Add in some new things or something every once in a while. But actually, I think maybe next week we might have kind of a non-Valiant related video to go along with things. But
what?
We'll see.
What are you talking about?
Maybe not. Oh, not next week. The week after next. No.
I don't know.
Okay. Well,
I'm intrigued as well.
It'll be a surprise to everybody.
That's right.
We may or may not be going on a comic book related excursion at some point.
Oh, that.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll see.
So we'll see if that turns into anything. But for the most part, we're going to try to
indie artists.
Yeah.
You can get a bunch of indie artists to draw you Magnus Robot Fighter.
We can get
over and
other
over
people to
again.
draw our favorite Valiant characters.
No, no, no. We haven't read the other issues yet, right? According to the show.
Oh,
So
we have to stick to where we are right now.
you're just going to have everyone do portraits of Legia for you and hope that they know what you're talking about.
Magnus and Legia.
All right. Anyway,
Anyway.
uh, so both of us read some Valiant comics at least in the past, and it's worth at least just giving a little bit of background so that people understand where we're coming from on it. In my case, I was at just the right age to start getting interested in comic book collecting when Valiant comics started coming out. So I went out and picked up some of the first issues of stuff and some of the collectible things at the time, which now are worth nothing. Um, but I read a lot of these stories, not the very, very early stuff, but I've gone back over the years and read some of the different issues and or storylines especially. And so there are some that are actually quite interesting to me, things that I really like a lot. Others are going to be brand new. So it'll be interesting to see that mix and to look at them with a little bit more of a critical eye than I did back then. I can already tell that my taste in art is kind of different because I get the sort of classic style that some of the stuff is going for, and I can appreciate it a little more, I think, as an adult. So how about you? You were even younger when you read some of these, I guess.
Yeah, I will definitely cede the expert role in the Valiant universe to you most likely because I was you're 6 years older than me for people who don't know, so you had a little bit of an edge there because I was a little bit younger when they were coming out with new stuff. So I didn't start reading most of them until after they were already kind of over. And we sort of had boxes of Valiant remnants all around the house. So,
And there are
um,
still some around, some of
oh
those.
yeah, yeah. So I kind of got into it a little bit more after everything had already passed. But it's weird because I guess there's a lot of people who aren't aware of the Valiant universe as such. And it never seemed weird to me because it was always like all around our house. Like it was like you probably had as much like Marvel stuff as you did Valiant stuff. So like in my mind I didn't really make a distinction between the two, you know?
Gotcha.
It seemed very normal to me to have all that stuff around. But then, a lot of people, you ask them, who some of these characters are. You ask them something about Valiant, and they'll have no idea what you're talking about. A
Right.
little bit less so now that they're working on this relaunch.
And we're actually probably going to stay away from the relaunch at least for now,
Mhm.
just because I think it might be weird to bounce back and forth between the two. But we'll see. Maybe we will start reading the new ones and the old ones. We'll just have to see. I am kind of interested to read some of the new ones, but others I can probably do without. We'll see.
Yeah, it's
But we're
hard
going to
to.
read it all. We're going to read it all at the beginning. All of the old stuff and just month by month by month.
Yeah, I think it'll give people kind of a good reference point for some of the newer stuff that because I know a lot of people who weren't into Valiant before who are really liking the new stuff that's coming out. So
Well, and to
maybe it will
be
give them
able
some reference.
yeah, to be able to compare and contrast. And I think one of the things that I really liked about the Valiant universe is the fact that it's all really interconnected in a really strong way. Um, and I hope that they'll do the same with the new stuff. It does look like that they're going to, because they've already talked about launching new characters in other books before they spin off into their own thing. And there wasn't a whole lot of, they kept it pretty tight together, which I actually do enjoy. Um, Being kind of a continuity nerd, that's a cool thing. And I think it's actually kind of hard to do it that way and still tell good stories. So I'm hoping that that's what we'll find here.
Yeah, I agree. I really like that it's kind of one cohesive ecosystem sort of. I find that very appealing that a lot of the people can interact in some fashion or the other and it not feel like it's something weird or something forced. Like I kind of feel sometimes when there's crossovers of
Oh,
certain
sure.
types. it's kind of like, yeah, these people don't belong in the same kind of like reality. But
Right.
no, I definitely feel like they're all sort of based on sort of in the same plane of reality.
Gotcha. Well, so let's maybe dive into the comics that we have tonight. Magnus Robot Fighter numbers 1 through 3. Obviously, then Magnus was the first book to come out from Valiant Comics, and it's an interesting one because it sort of picks up all the stories that happened back in the Gold Key days happened, and then this picks up from a certain point. So the first issue is a bonus-sized issue so that they can tell a lot of that story. Basically, Magnus lives in the far future. He's been trained to be the pinnacle of human beings and can break steel with his hands. There's some discussion of how that works. Maybe we could talk about that. But basically, he kills free-willed robots that try to hurt people. So these are robots that gain sentience and decide instead of following orders that they want to kill people or hurt people or whatever, and so he kills them instead. That's how the story starts. But then as he gets to know, and he has a robot mentor that has sort of raised him, who encourages him to kill robots, which we'll talk about more, I'm positive. Um, but basically, the way that the first 3 issues go is that there is a free-willed robot uprising um, after Magnus has thought he's killed the leader of the free wills. Just these other ones come up and they really threaten the city, or the continent-wide city of North Am. Um, so he destroys a bunch of them, and then he starts to feel weird about that because he doesn't know if they're alive or if they're not, and they don't really seem to know either. And he starts to sort of question his place in all of this. And so a lot of the major parts of the story revolve around him making these decisions and going against his girlfriend Legia and her father, who is a big official in North Am, and sort of becomes a traitor to the cause, if you will, to the human cause, because he doesn't want to just kill free-willed robots for no good reason. Um, Robots attack him, he kills them when he has to, but otherwise he kind of stays away. He makes friends with a waiter robot that's a free will, and who actually turns into a woman robot in the 3rd issue. And we also get the introduction of the Goths, Gophs, who are on the lower levels of this big, giant, futuristic city, and they're sort of scavengers, and they have a weird style of speech. And basically, one of them fixes up W23, the waiter robot, and helps him sort of get this new appearance, or I guess her get this new appearance. And it's interesting to see. It looks like that they're going to be a bigger force in the future. Uh, that's a really short summary of the 3 issues. There's a lot of action and story piled into these pages. Very different than the decompressed storytelling you'll see today. Did you want to add anything to what I said, Bruce?
Um, no, I mean that's a fairly good summary. When you compress it that much, it sounds really funny. It sounds a lot when you're reading it, it's not really like it doesn't seem weird or that ridiculous. But when you actually lay it all out, like okay, there's these free thinking robots who go crazy and try to kill everybody. But then he's got this robot mentor, but then he doesn't want to kill him, and he's got a girlfriend, and like it sounds really funny when you explain it like that,
Well,
but it's true.
I think a lot of it has to do with Magnus's own thinking about what he does. Like he's known as being the robot killer. And people will say he says robot fighter or something like that, and other people call him the robot killer, and he doesn't like that idea that he's killing things. And so he starts to sort of his reconsider what he's doing. It's almost like he's going through sort of a not a midlife crisis, but sort of an existential crisis.
And like you mentioned,
But there's a
his
lot more robot killing too. Sorry.
right,
Yes,
right, yes, there's a lot of robot killing. If the
there
title
is
of
a
the
lot of
book
robot.
does not, yeah, give that
Yeah.
away. But yeah, like you mentioned before, his like surrogate robot dad is a free thinking robot, and he
Well,
basically
let's just start there.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean that's pretty
Yeah.
early in the first
It's the very
issue.
first page of the very
Right.
first issue. But his father basically is this the first free thinking robot, as far as we know, who was in sort of an accident and became sentient. But yet he says that free will robots are not alive and that Magnus should totally kill them, which I find really interesting.
Magnus is always like, I don't know, and he's like, just kill them. They're not alive.
Right, right. And so that's a really interesting. So he's self-aware enough to know he's not truly alive in what he defines as being alive.
Right.
So right off the bat, you're starting off with this interesting sort of thing. I think he's O1 is his name, the robot.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They all have numbers and letter designations. And O1X, if I recall, is the evil robot.
Yeah, he's like the leader of the robotic uprising,
Right.
free thinking robotic
And whether
uprising.
he's evil, we'll have to see. But,
Well,
um, okay, so we start there, and then I guess we'll start with that. I mean, what do you think of Magnus's sort of plight, or is the drama, the main drama that's going on, as far as him not being sure whether he wants to kill robots and talking to the free wills and stuff like that?
I don't. I think it does a good job of kind of setting up one of the main points of conflict that is driving, at least from what I can tell from this point. I haven't read anything beyond the first three, so I honestly don't know. But it seems like it's kind of setting up that central dichotomy, I guess, of ideologies that they have, because they're really in their world. Magnus is kind of the only person, at least so far, that you encounter who's kind of not strictly on one side of the issue or the other.
Well, I think in the third issue, you start to see that the Goths may be
Yes.
sort of in the middle on this sort of thing because they're willing to help or they're willing to blow things up depending on the circumstances. They're kind of out for themselves.
Right. Yeah, I don't think the Goths particularly. I feel like they're kind of more in it just for like personal benefit. Not so much that it's like a moral or ethical thing, but just kind of like, they're kind of like thugs, sort of.
Mhm.
I guess, or vagrants, or however you want to describe them. So
Right.
they kind of just are in it for themselves, I think. But they certainly don't have a problem. And the other thing that kind of you kind of get in that mindset, or at least I did at the very beginning, where you're like, okay, humans, humans hate these rogue robots and everything, but like, robots outnumber people in that city like 10 to 1 or something,
Oh yeah.
and they have.
And
Oh, good.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say that they even like to fight robots, they dispatch more robots.
Right.
So I mean, like they're like everywhere.
Well, and there's of course a lot of parallels to probably slavery and other things like that, but basically they're threatening a way of life, right? Because if they just destroy all the robots, which would solve your problem, then all these people wouldn't have their robot servants to do stuff for them.
Yeah, and the other weird thing is that like the free thinking ones are, I guess again kind of a mirror of real life at some point, but they're like fighting for their robot rights, or like they want human like rights, I guess, as free
Right.
thinking robots. But humans are like, F that, you guys are made of metal, you don't count. But they're uprising mainly because some of them just want to kill people.
Yes, right, right.
I-
They want
I
to
feel like-
destroy the humans. Yeah.
I feel like there's kind of levels of rogue robots in this universe. There's like smart intellectual rogue robot who ponders like the intricacies of life, and then there's rogue robot who wants to kill everybody.
Right. Right. And O1X is definitely a thinking one because he mentions, for example, that humans can reproduce, but robots can't. So every time they kill a robot, it's an irrevocable loss.
Right.
And so that's a much greater blow to their people than it is to humans. So that's an interesting, you know, thing to think about.
Yeah.
So I guess just sort of digging into stuff that I liked about the issues.
Hmm.
Um, I really did like the style of the characters and of the and of the just the art in general and the cityscapes and stuff like that. It's not something that I'd want to see for every single comic, but I think it really works well for this sort of retro sci-fi kind of feel.
It definitely gave me kind of like a Flash Gordon style like
Totally.
feel.
Yeah, because the bots are all like spindly legs and arms, and Magnus has this red tunic thing on with no pants and big white boots, and somehow it's energy dampening, but not probably on his calves or his thighs because those are uncovered. But he's super tough. And I do love a ton of those little sci-fi elements, like the fact he has some sort of um, implant, like in his shoulder or something, that lets him hear robot communications.
Yes.
That never gets brought up after the first issue.
I'm hoping it's gonna make a comeback.
I'm sure it will at some point. And there's this interesting discussion at a dinner party about how he's able to break steel with his hands, which is awesome because I was wondering about that myself. And they mentioned that it was like willpower, right? That he does it through some sort of force of will, like mind over matter, that he breaks the steel.
It's from all of his training with his robot dad.
Right, so his robot dad trained him to kill all of his kind, which again, that's weird to me too. And maybe we'll find out something about that. You know, I don't know. But I really do love the style, and I have to say, I know you have the covers. Um, if you haven't put up the covers, if you want to do that, especially the cover for issue 2 is just very cool. Um, with all of these robots. I mean, just the scale of like he's falling off of this platform, and there's all these bots trying to kill him. Um, I don't know. I really like the dynamic nature of the art, and, like especially the scenes where there's tons of robots everywhere. Just do it. I don't know. It's very good. I
It's
enjoy
like
those.
there's never like one robot attacking. It's like no robots or like 1,000 robots.
Right, right. And he's getting torn up and grabbed and slashed. I think there's a scale to the book that I really enjoy.
Yeah,
Um,
it seems you kind of do get sort of like a depth of the city and everything like that. It helps that I think they end up dropping a lot of names of places and terminology and stuff. I think that helps too to kind of flesh it out a little bit.
yeah.
Because even though I will say that the names of most of the places in that city are ridiculous.
Oh, of course.
There's like the Mile Spire and the Main Brain. like, and everything's they don't say they never say like robot. Everything's a Rob.
But you know what I think helps is that they just drop you into that world and they expect you to keep up. So you don't get a chance to really judge it. You're rolling.
Right.
You know
No,
what I mean?
that's true. Yeah,
It's I think you buy into.
the only thing they really set up in the first issue is kind of Magnus's backstory, but they really don't tell you much after after he's an adult. Um, like the first half of the first issue is kind of glossing over all that stuff, and then
Right, right.
he's just like kind of there. So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, you do catch on. I mean, it's not hard to follow what's going on, but um, I did one of the first things I thought was that some of the names that they were throwing out were a little bit silly, but it's supposed to kind of be like a 50s sort of sci-fi thing. So
Yeah.
I kind of get that.
Well, and the storytelling is much more in the style of the time, the things that we don't see as much nowadays. There's a lot of 5 panel, 6 panel pages. There's a lot of stuff going on in each panel. Um, there's a lot of talking in certain places, and there's a lot of action in others, and it's definitely a different kind of story than you're used to. A lot happens in the issues, and I really, I can appreciate that style. It feels like you're getting some meat, which is nice.
All right, so I think we should talk about Legia next.
Oh goodness. See, I was trying to stick to good stuff, but yes, let's talk about Legia. Legia
She's a
drives me crazy.
she's a pretty important part of the story, kind of.
Legia, again, is Magnus's girlfriend, or maybe, sort of.
On
Maybe
and
they're
off.
just lovers. I don't know. She seems very fickle when it comes to Magnus.
In the first three
Um,
issues, they're on like half the time and off the other half. So
yeah. She is a horrible, horrible stereotype of the spoiled rich girl
help me,
that,
Magnus! There's robots here.
and then how could you not kill all the robots? Oh my God. Yeah. But we see other women that he may be interested in, and apparently she can read his mind and say, "Oh, you're thinking about another woman. Screw you. I'm done." Um,
But she can like not really read minds, but she can like read a mind for like a second, enough to get mad about it.
enough to get pissed off about it, right? Which makes me think she really can't do it at all, and she's just assuming that that's what he's thinking
She's just
about.
very intuitive.
She just says it every time he comes home. You're thinking about a woman, aren't you? And he's like, "Damn it, woman, I'm not." Yeah, Legia drives me nuts, and I really kind of hope she disappears. I don't think she will, because she seems to be an important part. And like, even when she takes off without him, when he wakes up after being injured and she's there, he's so happy to see her. I'm like, why? Why are you happy to see her? I mean, maybe he hasn't had any human contact except, because he was raised by a robot.
He craves humanity.
He just craves drama because he didn't have that with a robot dad. But she drives me crazy. Can I tell you the other thing that drives me crazy
Yes.
in this? I actually really love how they play with language with the robots, the way that the robots talk. Like in the lettering, they put little dots between every word.
Hmm.
And it does make me think like that they kind of stop in between each word, which is kind of neat as a way to do the robot language. But I hate the goth language.
Oh my gosh. I was gonna bring that up too. Adding like itty to the end of everything.
Goth language is ridiculous. Talk about it a little bit, and I will see if I can find an example for you.
It gets really bad
It's,
in the third issue,
yeah, that's where I am
like
right
the
now.
last half
Let's
of
see.
the third issue, because there's a goth who basically shows up and the waiter
LZ.
friend wants to. It's him and the leader of OX or O1X, the leader of the uprising. Like, go find the first dead or free thinking robot. And they try to like, I guess, from what I gather, they try to like implant his brain and O1X's because he was supposed to be like super intelligent and like took over the whole robot network by himself. So they were trying to like implant his knowledge into O1X, but O1X was didn't like survive the process. The waiter bot actually killed him, right?
Well,
Yeah,
thought so anyway.
yeah. I
Yeah.
think because he says something about it later. Although I didn't realize it at the time. Um,
I didn't either. That
so
wasn't terribly clear.
anyway, this goth girl appears and she's like really good with robotics, I guess. She sells robot parts on the black market or whatever, and she helps the waiter bot become a woman, which is what we referred to earlier when
Right.
his waiter bot buddy, male buddy, or I guess androgynous
Well, we
robot
assume
buddy,
male, but yeah, androgynous robot buddy. Right.
turns into
Um,
a overtly female robot.
Okay, I have some text here. This is from when Magnus first meets Elsie. He's freeing this sort of police chief or police leader guy who led a group of robs to riot robs, if you will. And so Magnus breaks him out of his chains, and then all of a sudden Elsie drops down and hits him with some kind of a wrench thing and says, "Steal my ransom bait, does you?" Mine, mine, mine. My flujiggy livelihood, Cloddy?
I
Cloud
hate
Cloddy?
Cloud Claudia.
And then Magnus says, oh, and then she says, oh no, Magnus? He's yours? Fine, fine, fine. Why does you not just say? Peaceful salvage, my only biz. And then, one of her robots goes driving away, and she says, "Hey, you knob, where you going? Not my Robs. Ignore those orders. Direct command from a fluey human, you Bob Knob."
Was that Bob Knob? Was that what that was?
Bob Knob.
Yes.
Um, so bad.
She's not the only person who said Cloud Cluey or
Cloud Cloddy.
Cloud
Yeah.
Claudia. Somebody
I
else
guess
said that earlier, and I was like, what? I just glossed over it. I was like, I'm not sure what that is, but
the golf stuff drives me
I
crazy,
guess
and
it's.
I know for a fact that doesn't go away, and that's just gonna make me sad.
I could seriously. There was a point on one of the pages where I like could not follow the conversation anymore. Like I was reading it, but it just made no sense. So I just moved
Yeah.
on. But
Also, every other goth we've run into so far wears these big, giant robes, and even Magnus and Legia wear them when they go down into the goth levels. L LZ wears like a little dress, a very small dress, and I have no idea why, especially when she does salvage for a living.
when you first meet her, she's actually being held upside down by the ankles. So leaves very little to be desired. But anyway, yes, it's kind of ridiculous. I get what they're trying to do, like uneducated thug, people, but I don't know. It was mostly just confusing, and I
Yeah.
don't think added
All right.
very much. But
Now,
um,
all that said, I mean, I get to the end of these three issues and I really want to jump ahead and read the next one because I'm actually interested to see what happens. I mean, the big thing towards the end of issue three is that 01X gets this sort of brain upgrade and actually takes over all the Robs everywhere, or at least that's what he says, or all the non-free wills. He
yeah,
plugs into the main sort of hive mind,
I think
and
what happened was that now that I'm thinking back on it, because it was kind of unclear at when it happened, but when they tried to implant, I guess T1's brain into O1X, I
mhm.
think that W23 thought that he had died or that he
I
didn't
think that's yeah,
survive,
I think you're right.
and
But
and then they
then
just
at the
left
very
him
end,
there.
right. O1X says at the end he's in the main chamber where he's got all these wires hooked into him and he's talking to all the robots everywhere.
The
He
main
says,
brain.
Yo, he says, I am in control thanks to the power of the legacy of the great T1. All 32 billion unfree robots in North Am are now under my direct command. The day of our kind has come, and the utter annihilation of humankind begins now. And that's the end of the third issue. That is a great ending to an issue. I want to read the next one.
What I don't get is I guess they can't. I don't know. I don't think they really thought out this robot network very well. Because they have like this one building with this one room that controls like 30 billion robots.
This is a much older trope, right? The fact that instead of giving all the robots individual brains, you just have one big one that they all share, basically.
Also, is there not like every robot sci-fi story, they all have like some kind of like fail-safe trigger thing to shut them off, but
Well, and maybe they do in this, and we just haven't seen it yet. It's hard to tell.
all right, and one more thing I think Bear's talking about, and then I think we
Sure.
probably got most of it.
Yeah.
Um, the fact that their research into these rogue robots, which is from what I can tell, a fairly new phenomenon for them,
Mhm.
rogue robots. They're starting to be able to tell the difference between rogue robots and normal robots.
Important to note, that's right. Apparently, rogue robots shake a little bit.
From reading the comic, I've been wondering what that means because at first I thought it was like something in their circuitry or something, but I think it's like an actual
I
like
think what they were saying is
body
that
thing.
there's some sort of energy field that causes the sentience, or what they think is sentience, or whatever. And so that affects the mechanism. And so they actually do shake a little bit. Because one of them holds a flower, and Magnus can see the flower shaking.
Yeah.
So that's how he knows that there's something going on.
Yeah, because
Uh,
they at the beginning they don't know how to tell the difference between like normal functioning robots and rogue ones. So they're always like they get really suspicious of like every robot around them.
right.
And they're always like, "Well, how do you know he's not one? He could be a rogue." But nobody really knows. But Magnus, I guess Magnus is, in addition to being super strong and a good fighter, I guess he's also like super smart about robotics
Well,
too.
he's an expert in robots. But
Right.
again, that kind of makes sense if
No,
you grew
yeah.
up just learning about how to kill robots.
Right. Yeah.
Fight robots. I'm sorry, fight robots, not kill robots. Can let me point out one last thing that I find wonderful in a
Okay.
cheesy way. Um, 01 in the first issue,
Mhm.
when we see him, is walking with a cane.
I didn't even notice that.
Why does he need to walk with a cane?
R-
That makes no sense.
Rusty
But
joints.
he is walking with a wooden cane.
He's old. He's an old bot. He's an old Rob.
He's an old Rob. And but somehow why doesn't he just fix his legs? Like, why doesn't he just replace one of his legs? Or
That is a
both of his
preposterous
legs?
notion. He's an old Rob. What are you gonna do? Maybe it's cheap. Maybe he doesn't have enough money to fix his leg.
Magnus, when you go out for groceries this week, can you get me a wooden cane, please? I'm starting to feel a little rickety. Not get me some WD-40,
Yeah, that's what I'm
not go buy me some replacement legs. And yes, I mean, or I'm sorry, 1A is his name, not 01. 1A is
Yes.
also gold, and we don't see any other gold Robs. But he could spray paint the legs. Go get me some new Rob legs, like some athlete Rob or courier Rob legs, ones that are really good, and then I'll just spray paint them gold and stick them on.
Now was he using a cane at the the first shots you see of him on Earth?
Very first panel that you see him in, he's in the big aquarium that they live in,
Well,
or
he
they're underwater in their secret hideout. And 1A says, the whole story? And yes, he's holding the cane. Actually, in that picture, he's not holding the cane, but the cane comes down from his hand. Um, that's a little bit of an art snafu, I guess. But
well
but then yeah,
he used to he before he landed on Earth, he was like he worked on a spaceship or something.
that's terrific. He's a robot.
Maybe he got injured in the subsequent chaos because I guess what happened is they went through.
Got his legs replaced. What the hell? Why is this an issue?
He's a cheap Rob.
He's a very frugal Rob. Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
Magnus doesn't make a whole lot of money off of robot fighting.
Although you would
So,
think that with the amount of robots that Magnus has defeated and likely disassembled.
and he is 410 years old.
Yes.
And actually, now that I'm looking at it, one of his legs is all bent up.
See?
And who gives a crap? Replace the bent up leg. How is this hard?
I like that that's like the one thing that bugs you out of everything. It's the cane.
No, and it's not even that it bugs me. It's just I find it hilarious,
Yeah.
like a hilarious affectation that this robot doesn't think he's alive, doesn't think any other like that he's particularly special in any way other than he's the only he was the first free will Rob, but yet he has this weird human affectation of using a cane.
Well, what about this? What about
That's a little touch.
maybe he's excited to be a free-thinking Rob, and because robots would never normally use a cane, maybe he just woke up one day and said, "You know what? F it. Humans get to use canes. I can do what I want. I make my own rules. I'm having a cane." Maybe he's
Um,
exercising his newfound free will there. I don't know.
I'm so sure that that's the case.
That's my best guess. Either that or he's just an old cheap Rob. I don't know.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. So, I think we've said all that we want to say about these, although I will say, just to give you an idea of the number of copies sold on these issues as compared to books today. You know, a lot of books that we read are going to be 20,000 or under. A lot of mid-range books nowadays sell about 20,000 books in a month, an issue. Magnus Robot Fighter number 1, 80,000 copies. 2, 65,000. 3, 60,000. Next time, we will do September of 1991, and we'll be reviewing 2 books then. We'll have Magnus Robot Fighter number 4 and Solar Man of the Atom number 1. I'm excited about Solar. I really love that book.
Yeah, that'll be a little bit shifting there. It's like kind of similar, but a little bit of different direction. So that'll be good.
Yep, I think so too. And then we'll have a couple of books a month for the next few months, and then it expands from there. Then you start to get Harbinger that comes in, and then Exo Man War and Rai and all sorts of fun stuff.
Ninjak.
Ninjak comes way later.
Oh, I love me some Ninjak.
Because we still got Eternal Warrior, Unity, Archer and Armstrong, Shadow Man, before we get, let's see, I'm looking through the list here. Tell people where they can find us. I'll see if I can find the first name.
Well, in case you guys haven't seen during the rest of the show, this show and all of our other web shows are hosted at Geektacular.TV. We've got another show called Instant Gratification that we throw out every once in a while about web videos and stuff like that.
Do we now?
We do occasionally when we feel up to it.
All right. All right.
We've also got a few other things cooking. So and we have a pretty big archive of older shows, so you can head on over there and check out all of those. And also be sure to whatever social media stuff you use, go and check us out. You can follow us. We're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Google+. So you can go to the links below. Check us out there. We usually mirror all the videos on Facebook. So if you like us there, whenever we post a new video, you can get it right in your feed. But yeah, that's how you can find us.
Yes, and I will just tell you, Ninjak number 1 comes out February 1994.
No!
Also that week, or also that month, Magnus Robot Fighter number 33.
We'll have to be waiting a while.
The Atom number 30. It's going to be a while. It's going to be a while. And holy crap, there's a bunch of books that come out starting around that period of time. So it'll be interesting once we're doing 8 books, and they're all different titles.
Well, that's going to take some mental juggling, but we'll see.
We'll make it work. When they're different storylines, it'll be easier.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us here on the very first episode of Valiant Effort. I hope you chip in with us, and I hope that you go back and read these books with us. If you own them yourselves, you can go online and purchase them. You can obtain them all sorts of ways, I'm certain of it. I would say grab these issues and read them along with us. We'd love your feedback.
Yeah, I was actually surprised to see a lot of the original Valiant run is already on Comixology.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, they put a whole bunch up recently because of the new books launching. So go out and get Magnus Fighters 1 through 3. Give them a read and let us know what you think. Maybe we'll talk about your responses on the next show.
Yep. If you want to leave comments on the YouTube video, we'll go through those next time and talk about them. So, yeah, thanks for tuning in, and catch us next time on Valiant Effort.
See you then. Jar Jar. No. It's a jar. Makes it off.